got a lot to talk to you about. First of all,
Yes,
who was advising the president on paying taxes after attacking Mitt Romney for paying taxes in the teens for a year and a half, paying 18.4% when he's worth $14 million? Who advised him to do that?
Well, apparently they're hoping to highlight a couple things. One is, hey, look at all the charitable money he gave, and he did give almost a quarter of his income to charity, which of course lowers the rate. But they're hoping they want to use it as saying, yes, we agree with you, Joe. He pays too much in tax. He doesn't pay enough in taxes. So,
well, there's a way to fix that, Chuck, of course, and that is
to write
pay more
check.
in taxes.
Pay more in taxes.
Yeah.
That's why I asked. I said, how come he hasn't just written more in taxes? And they say, well, he's already donating 5% of his salary back to Treasury. He's already giving all this money to charity.
I wish, 18.
Welcome to the budget fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the interesting thing on that. If the president felt like he needed to pay the federal government more, he could take out his checkbook, take out a pen, stroke a check to the U.S. Treasury, and he has the ability, the opportunity to write an additional check. If he thinks his taxes are too low, we'll be able to go down, pick it up for him, take it over to Treasury.
And Chuck, making this worse is that the president, and Politico's reporting it this morning, the president was talking about how shameful it is that Mitt Romney paid less in taxes than teachers paid in taxes, and yet Barack Obama, again, worth reportedly $14 million, paying less in taxes than teachers, or Warren Buffett's poor, overworked secretary.
Right. Well, the one thing the White House will say is he does himself bring up this point that he doesn't believe he pays enough in taxes. Yeah. So that will be the argument that they make.
So,
on that
Chuck,
front.
we've been talking about this horrible case out of Philadelphia.
Right.
The Gosnell case, which is just you get into the details, and it's absolutely staggering. And our staff put up numbers from your Wall Street, New York, your NBC News Wall Street Journal poll last week. I must admit, I've been saying on the show for some time that Americans are getting more progressive on same-sex marriage. They're becoming more conservative on abortion. I was even shocked at the turnaround. 52% of Americans in the latest NBC News poll say they want abortion to be illegal. Only 45% now say they want abortion to be legal. We're really seeing, and we have for a couple of years now, a sea change on abortion. Are we not? And we're showing a chart through the years of a real sea change. Have you noticed that?
Well, what I've noticed over the last few years is that you actually see that there isn't a consistent, it's basically we're in the same place, but we're within a floor and a ceiling on that, either just on the north side of 50 or just on the south side of 50, depending on your point of view. But particularly one of the things that you've seen, say, 20 years ago, where those numbers weren't that close, the quote pro-choice numbers were higher always consistently than the pro-life numbers. You don't see that today.
Why is that?
And the biggest, it's technology, Joe.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. I believe technology, and I've always been surprised that the pro-life movement hadn't just sort of let science and technology win this argument for them. Don't force it. And the mistake that I would say that some made politically was sort of forcing the issue and then ending up making it about contraception. And when the conversation was about contraception, those on the anti-abortion right side, it wasn't even going to be close.
Yeah, and Chuck, you again, you look at the numbers, you look at everything that's happening. You talk about technology. I had a preemie. He was born between 27, 28 weeks. Some of these children that were being murdered by this doctor in Philadelphia, one was at 30 weeks. He joked that the baby was so large that could drive him home. But they're also, Marcia, we're talking about children. I call them children.
They are children.
24 weeks. As I walked through the NICU unit at Sacred Heart Hospital in Pensacola, going to see my young baby boy, I was walking past so many babies that were 24 weeks. 25 weeks.
You're exactly
Things have changed a lot since 1973 in Roe.
They have. And Chuck's right. It's technology. When people hear that young heartbeat, they see that sonogram, that is their baby. And they look forward to the day that they hold that baby in their arms. And then you hear this Gosnell case, and it has been horrifying to me, and I am really thankful that the media is beginning to cover that case, because it is atrocious.
Yeah.
It is absolutely atrocious. And those of us who have had children in NICUs and have watched that struggle for life with those little tiny 2-pound, 3-pound babies, and then see them grow, it is just incredible. And you think this guy chose to end that life.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jack's going to turn 5 pretty soon, and I have a lot of friends that get, because when it happens, when you have a preemie, you just wonder whether he's going to live or die, and you sit there and it's so emotional. And parents would always come up and elbow me and go, "They're always the toughest," and they are. All my other
They're
kids,
fighters.
all my other kids, they get shots and they look and they start screaming. Jack, you give Jack a shot, I look down and I go, I went through more than that in my first 6 weeks in the NICU. I mean, it is. So it is. I think Chuck brings up a great point, Bob. Technology.
Yeah,
73, far different technology than 2013.
I'm very much and always have been pro-choice on this issue, but I've interviewed a tremendous number of survivors of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq who, because of medical advances and technology, would never have survived the wounds that they had. They're alive and living lives and stuff, whereas if it had been Vietnam, for example, they would not have survived. And so, you have these medical advances, and you have to pay attention to them and make a lot of decisions, even if you're talking about abortion rights and that sort of thing. But I think that what happens is the whole landscape gets obscured by politics, and it becomes tough on these high-profile issues to have a rational discussion.
You see it in Newtown on guns. You're now seeing it just in the first couple of days in Gosnell on abortion, where the extremes on both sides decide they're going to take a tragedy and they're going to really exploit it. And that's not to say that Newtown shouldn't change the gun discussion and Gosnell shouldn't change the abortion discussion, but the extremes, of course, go too far.
It's worth noting here, this guy is being charged with several counts of homicide under the laws of Pennsylvania, a fairly liberal state, by prosecuting attorneys in a liberal city, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I mean, so this isn't exactly about Roe. This isn't exactly about constitutional issues. No. I mean, what he was doing, I don't think really anybody is.
I think the impact is going to be when it comes to regulations, to make sure that, as Bill Clinton said, that what was his trilogy abortion?
Safe, legal, and rare.
You have states right now, the New York Times reported on it this past weekend, that are actually trying to strip away regulations for abortion clinics. California trying to strip away safeguards and regulations for abortion clinics. I think in this part of the debate, I think it's going to have a substantial impact. I think
Joe,
will bring forward.
Chuck.
You bring up I think it's interesting you brought up Newtown and Gosnell, because I do feel as if you've got, for instance, the pro-gun crowd that says, hey, there's no law, we're just as outraged about Newtown, there's no law that could have changed it. And I think you hear pro-choice folks saying about Gosnell, wait a minute, this guy wasn't running an abortion clinic, this guy was a grotesque and awful supposed doctor, he was a butcher, this guy wasn't, he wasn't following the law. So I think that's where you see some odd similarities, but folks that have passion on this side when it comes to the life issue say, no, this should be a call to arms, in the same way gun control folks are saying, no, Newtown needs to be a call to arms to have the larger conversation. And I also think if you're going to talk about Gosnell, you got to talk about the issue of poverty. And this guy was taking advantage of poor women, taking advantage of trying to give them an easy way out and different things. So we got to have a holistic conversation in the same way we need to about Newtown when it comes to mental health and things like that.
No doubt about it. Marsha, last word.
I think that what you're going to see with the Gosnell case is people will focus on, yes, the regulations, but also ending federal funding of abortion, and that will come back into play. I think that with Newtown, you will see more of an emphasis emphasis on the mental health components and who it is that commits these atrocities and how they get carried out, and maybe realizing that it's not always about the gun. Many times you need to be addressing those mental health issues and medicating children at a very early age.
Yeah, you know, and as Chuck said, and we've said it here, we've got to have a holistic discussion on gun violence. And Chuck, as you said, the same here when you look at Gosnell. So Chuck, thanks a lot. What are we going to do in the Daily Rundown?
Well, we're doing a lot of immigration and guns. You know, that's a big focus, a little bit on how this is all about one person. It's not a gang of 8, it's a gang of 1, Mr. Rubio.
Okay, very good.
Right.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for being with us. You know, I was just thinking, I have to ask Chuck, what do you have today? BuzzFeed, you guys move so fast. What's going on in the next 14 seconds? What's going on at BuzzFeed? What are you guys working right now?
Marco Rubio, Gang of 1. That's all anybody's talking about, it seems like.
Okay, very good. We will be right back with